your eye like a big pizza.
This is different.
Will die. And if you don't have an abortion, you will die.
Those boys who are wearing their hair long are saying no to the mask industry.
The entirety of women's voting inside of the United States has been a complete unmitigated disaster. Unmitigated disaster which has led us to progressive policies, societal decay, a society which cannot reproduce itself, literally, can't even reproduce itself.
If it would be possible to make the men less aggressive, less competitive, less sure of themselves, that would be certainly something good. And
Jesus stood up here before us this afternoon and said, listen, I got two questions for you. Question number one, who do people say that I am? We have to tell him.
We have to tell him. We have to tell him, you know, Jesus, most people just want to reduce you to a nice guy.
Just to point out something that's a little bit obvious, I did chop this video up a little bit just because it was a roundtable discussion-esque TikTok forum where people were joining, hopping in, taking turns talking, and we were all taking turns, and it took a while. So for the sake of time, I cut out a little bit of it just so we could stay on topic and focus on the point I was trying to make, as well as anyone that was supplementing the point I was making. But yeah, aside from that, enjoy the video.
Alright, All Blood, do you agree or disagree with the prompt? Tell us why, and you can speak on anything else you heard. And welcome back.
Hi, thank you. So yeah, feminism is trash. I 1000% agree. Women, from an ontological perspective, cannot enforce their own rights. They have to lean on men to even enforce the idea of egalitarianism, right, amongst men and women, which therefore makes it a paradox. Secondly, even the idea of women voting is a terrible thing, based on the fact that women vote for progressive policies, they vote for more security in the state, they vote for deletion of children, they vote for infertility. These women tend to be antinatalist. It propagates an antinatalist mindset. If we look at European countries, in Europe as a whole, you'll notice things like a 1.5, 1.6 replacement rate, which basically, and they're the most sexually revolutionized out of most countries, right? That would show us that these progressive policies quite literally delete civilizations. No matriarchal society, fully matriarchal, has existed and thrived. They tend to delete themselves. The modern version of that is what we're seeing today. The only reason that the United States is holding on as long as it is because we have a much higher population than European countries. So yeah, feminism is utter, complete, heretical, against God garbage that needs to be tossed in the waste bin and never looked at again. Thank you.
You have to understand.
He's back. He goes after you.
Back. So, we're a nation where you are free to be Christian. We are not a Christian nation. And for some reason, there's some confusion around that. Where life starts is different among religions. I understand per your
such a bad argument.
That's your life starts at conception. And that's just fine.
No.
I'm not saying that people having choice means a person must get a deletion. And no, if you don't want one, don't get one. But if you don't believe life starts until first breath, who the hell am I to tell you that if you have a baby with Tay-Sachs, if you are not ready for whatever reason and your religious doctrine dictates that life doesn't begin until first breath, that you must carry it on because that's what I think. Your freedom of religion says what you may or may not do doesn't mean that you can say what I may or may not do. There's a huge chasm of difference there.
All right, All Blood?
Sorry about that. Yeah, so to respond to Anita's whole idea about Christians thinking life begins at conception and that being something that's like exclusive. No, according to biology, life begins at fertilization. There's no argument you can necessarily make that would justifiably delete a child and be morally sound, because a child, quite literally, regardless of how it's conceived, whether it's a grape, whether it's incestuous, whether it's consensual, the child cannot consent to being put in a womb. Which I would say now, today, that would translate into a child cannot consent to being put in a literal death chamber, because that's what wombs have become via abortion.
Unalive.
You can't say you can't say the D word either. My bad. All right, yeah. So, yeah, deletion chamber. That's all I really. I was in the middle of doing something. I'll concede the rest of my time.
Sorry, can't help it. Anita?
That's fine. We just have a fundamental disagreement.
Alright, Blood, you have something, and that was Bert, our godmod.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
So, Anita, what's your definition of feminism? It's egalitarianism, right?
In practice, it is more egalitarian than it is a one-sided push for misandry or misogyny.
So do you think men and women should be equal, be pushed to have equal opportunities, all that stuff, right?
Ideally.
Yeah, so if you have to push for egalitarianism, how can egalitarianism exist?
Again, it goes to agreement. You don't have to have a force to push. You should be able to convince people that what you're saying is right and just.
You do need
and
a
if
force.
You can do that, actually what you need is agreement, and you need people to listen.
Yeah,
because if people will listen and can logically agree to, there's no reason why a woman should not be able to provide a stable home environment without relying upon a man to make that happen. I think that most people will be in agreement. Again, you have some people that are very, they're diametrically opposed on either side. But as far as the bell curve goes, most people will agree that having equity of opportunity and, for the most part, equity of outcome is a good thing.
Okay, so you say you don't need enforcement. How in the world do you get people to conform to something without enforcement? They don't just agree, by the way. This never has been demonstrated, ever, in human history.
Well, allegedly, according to everyone else here that has brought up the starts of feminism, it was a granted thing because they got men to agree with the notion that women should be allowed to have bank accounts and access credit. So if there is agreement, there need not be violence in order to enforce that. Things can be codified without splatter of bodily fluid.
So that would mean that ontologically a patriarchy exists. Permissions have to be granted to women, therefore women are inherently unequal to men in that regard.
Facts.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, so with that being said, now since you've conceded that feminism is a paradox, it doesn't work, because that's what you just did. We're inherently unequal.
Well, what I did is I stopped talking to you because you're set in one view. And
let's debate the view. I'm not just gonna say nicey nice and not engage with your worldview. See, that's the problem, is you are acknowledging that there is an inherent difference, so you can't even debate it. You can't. You have to concede to it.
No, it's not a concession.
Debate's over.
You can't win. You can't win a fight with an argument with a crazy person.
How is that crazy?
How was that insane? How was that insane? You have the same argument. Well, if you're getting granted rights, there's lots of people who are granted rights. There are lots of people who are granted rights without it
by men.
because the patriarchy is a framework for most laws that are established? Sure.
It has to be.
Okay.
It has to be.
It doesn't have to be.
It has to
It
be.
doesn't have to be.
No, because here's the thing, right? If I were to take a civilization that was exclusively women and a civilization exclusively men, and we turned the men, hey, this civilization of women has jars of honey that you want, the men are going to overtake that civilization overnight. That's what's going to happen. Therefore, women cannot enforce nor inherently lead. Yeah, go for it.
No, that's not how it works. Sarah, get back in queue and try again.
Sorry. Don't mean to enable people jumping in. That's my fault.
Oh, did I freeze again? That's not how it works. Sarah, get in queue and try again. Pleasure, then tone.
I think the point a man is trying to make is that the reality is if men decided as a whole, as a society, to completely flip the narrative and really oppress women, the reality is there's nothing women could do to stop us, period, point blank. The fact that we have come this far as a society, where as women, you can work wherever you want, you can wear whatever you want, you can live wherever you want, you can study wherever you want. You can live your life however you choose to live it, and it's still not enough is absolutely baffling.
So no, Old Blood is right. When it comes down to it, yeah, nothing you say when it comes down to it isn't valid unless we put some type of force behind it, and that force is usually upheld by men. The thought that the ideology that feminism is a thing is because we allow it. I'm sorry. Literally, we could get rid of that shit tomorrow if we wanted to, but we do love y'all, so we let y'all have y'all bottle sometimes. And this bottle happens to be filled with shit. I'm not gonna lie.